What's good, y'all? We're gonna do some TikToks today that'll make you think twice. Yeah, before we do, let's hit that like, let's hit that sub, let's take this channel a long ways, man. Scary TikToks.
Admiral Byrd, you've been to both the North Pole and the South Pole. Is there any unexplored land left on this Earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. And not up around the North Pole, because it's getting crowded up there now, because they find out it's really usable, not only to live in, but militarily. But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole on the other side of the South Pole from Middle America. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
That's a tremendous
So
challenge.
there's a lot of adventure left down at the bottom of the world.
Admiral, do you hope to see that?
We've found enough of coal within 180 miles of the South Pole in a great ridge of mountains. It's not covered with snow, enough to supply the whole world for quite a while.
Well,
That's the coal. Now, there's evidence of many other minerals. We are pretty sure there's oil. Now, that coal shows the bottom of the world. Now, by far the coldest spot in the world. Where that coal is gets 100 below zero in the winter.
Well,
It was once tropical. So we think there's oil there, and there's evidence, probably uranium there.
is it any secret? Is there uranium there? That would be the only thing that would be practical to actually go after, I suppose. Everything else would be economically unfeasible, wouldn't it?
Well, as we recklessly expend our resources, the time will come when we'll have to go after that stuff down there.
Well,
You know, I avoided what you said about uranium. I'm not sure about that. I don't want to have the world fighting over the Antarctic.
Admiral Byrd, is there a competition among other nations to try to get information about Antarctica and possibly to secure some of these resources?
Well, yes. There are now 7 nations very much interested. Russia is interested tremendously. That I'm sure of. Australia has an expedition down there. The Argentine, the Chile, New Zealand, Britain, and so on. Now, you can understand those people down there being interested because they live down there. The New Zealanders, the Argentinians, the Chileans, and the Australians. And so we don't do much about claiming anything.
Admiral, you make
Do we
this sound a little crowded. Are there that many expeditions now there or en route there?
Well, you know, as I said, it's the most peaceful place in the world, but I don't think it will be for long because of this intense interest on the part of other nations and this nation.
Well, Admiral,
Say government. Well, Byrd, may I ask you, is there a great difference between the top of the world and the bottom of the world?
There is. Now, the North Pole is the center of an ocean 10,000 feet deep. The South Pole, the center of a plateau 10,000 feet high. The North Polar Sea is surrounded by continents slightly frozen. The Antarctic continent is surrounded by a belt of ice, frozen seas of at least 1,200 miles thick. Now, the South is a plateau. It gets, in some places, 14,000 feet up. I've been over areas about 13,000, and it's a little bit chilly up there.
Oh, you
So
think?
there's that big difference between the top and bottom of the world. The North really isn't very cold up there on the Arctic Ocean.
Not compared to South.
We're given a photo with the airships in the background in the sky. So I went digging and found this photo from 1905, World's Fair in Oregon, showing more
photo's blurry.
airships. And since I haven't really covered this topic yet on this channel, in my opinion, and a few others, this form of travel was all over the place. It wasn't just created in the 1800s, and the Hindenburg event was used as a scare tactic to make these airships look faulty, removing this free energy form of transportation technology out of our lives. Do you really think that they put a gas in these airships that would be so incredibly flammable and fly them over massive cities? Or does it make more sense that this Hindenburg event was a planned event to get rid of this free form of travel and wipe it from the history books? Here we have a photo of one of these airships sitting in between the 2 spires of the Old World building. you can see that they use these spires to electrically charge these airships. And this was common knowledge. And in the very next photo, it's leaving the port. We are not given the truth about our history. This isn't something that we are ever told about in our mainstream schooling system all over the world. Do you find that odd? Let's keep digging. We see that the U.S. Army had this technology in the 1800s, as well as the Navy. Now, this is a photo from July of 1931, and we clearly have an airship charging at the top of this building. So we have a lot going on here, and this was within the last 100 years. An airship charging at the top of this tower. Did you think they only charged at the top of buildings? Of course not. They had charging docks in the middle of the water. Here we have a photo of the U.S. Navy airship in 1924.
Wow.
Charging from this boat. Now let's zoom in on this charging station to get a good look at what's going on here. Now this is a technology that we were never told about. This is hidden from our timeline. A clear proof that there is much more to the story than what we've been told, especially since this was not thousands of years ago, and shows how easily history can be rewritten. This technology should be common knowledge at this point. Here we have another angle in Rhode Island of the charging taking place. These airships were not powered by gas or simply helium. And if we switch angles here, we can actually see the charging tool that was used right at the top of this tower. They're clearly about to connect to the airship. So this, in my opinion, is clearly explaining what's going on at the top of these old world buildings. They were charging stations for the airships. They have the same features, and I guarantee you that they still turn on, since this was not that long ago. And I'm going to take this time right now to answer a lot of people's question. Will we ever find the truth? As we keep uncovering more and more documented evidence, we're going to find that the previous civilization was not that far in the past, and our current structures hold so much more technology than we ever truly understood. So in my opinion, yes, we are going to find the truth about all of this. We are uncovering the truth faster and faster, and this community gets bigger and bigger, with more and more people sharing their thoughts and knowledge. The mainstream history is becoming comedy hour at this point. So we can clearly see that these buildings all around the world may have had a second purpose, but they were without a doubt here to generate free energy, specifically for airships. And once you realize this, then we can go deeper and ask the question, was the previous civilization capable of using these buildings to power their flight that were so much more powerful, so much faster, and so much more incredible than an airship? I believe that they fully understood this technology. They were the ones that constructed it. They had this technology and were able to travel through the air so much faster than we can today while using the Earth's natural energy. These buildings are technology. They are able to extract the energy and are able to turn it into a fuel. If you're looking for a why, a motive to suppress this technology, well, it would 100% benefit a civilization, us. It's free. There is zero benefit to free transportation, free energy. Do we need to go further for the why? So when you go around your town now and see the top of these buildings, we can all understand how popular this form of transportation really was. It was everywhere.
The Roman circus. That's why they pay anchormen like Dan Rather $2 million a year.
That was weird.
Because he doesn't question them. He knows that if he goes against them, he's going to lose $2 million a year. Do you think a man that looks pretty and sits in front of a TV camera for the 6 o'clock news is worth $2 million a year? No way. I don't care how long he works and I don't care what he does. There is no job worth $2 million a year. That's why they pay athletes these fantastic salaries. I was listening to the radio the other day. They just contracted to pay one player on one team $6 million a year. Can you believe this?
And why is that?
It's the Roman circus. What does the emperor do when the people become restive, and when the people are asking questions, and when the people don't like the policies of the emperor? He sends them to the circus. He creates a circus. He builds a giant coliseum. And he begins to throw the Christians to the lions. And he has great chariot races and football games and basketball games, all to keep the idiots preoccupied with things that don't mean anything in the scheme of the entire world.
Sounds right.
So that they don't have the time to learn what the truth is. So they don't ever get smart enough to learn how they're being manipulated. So they don't ever question the emperor. I know men who don't know anything in the world except who plays third base for the Mets. And they think that's a great accomplishment. And they meet and pat each other on the back and bond and go have cocktails and talk about what this guy that plays third base for the Mets did in last night's game.
That's crazy.
It's sad. It's a game. Football's a game.
Shouldn't be paid that
Football's
much.
a game.
Shit.
But let me tell you something. When 150 of the most powerful men and women in the world can meet in secret in Baden-Baden, Germany, and plot the fate of billions, and nobody even cares about it. But 6 football players go to lunch together, and it's in the headlines across the country. You have a reflection of the society in which that exists. And it is a sick society that is doomed to self-destruction. That's what makes me so sick, is that I'm trying to wake up the people who on a daily basis are proving the ones that I'm warning them about to be right. A nation of people who are willing to send their sons and daughters that they profess that they love to a foreign country to die. And they use the excuse to themselves that they're sending them off to defend our country, and they know damn well that's a lie.
Why did they destroy all the bells after World War II? Because if you sit in a bell and someone hits it and it begins to resonate, you can begin to heal like that. Because sound frequency instantaneously heals the body. Similar to chanting. If you any sound effect will begin to instantly structure all the body at the same time. That's what used to happen at the cathedrals. They would ring the bells or they would play the pipe organs, and all of the cells in the body would instantaneously become structured, which would instantly heal them. But they had to get rid of the pipe organs, which are made from lead, which is interesting, and they had to get rid of the bells, because both of those can heal people. Now imagine if a bell of the size was ringing in a cathedral. Now imagine the frequency that would come out of the cathedral into the town. You could heal the entire town instantaneously just by ringing the bell in the cathedral. That's why they had to get rid of them. They had to break all those bells. All the bells you ever look up. Just type in like bell in whatever country or city you're in, and notice how all the bells have a crack in them and they're broken. I wonder why that is. And people would say, oh, it's a conspiracy and it's just made up. No, there's intention. There's intention to get rid of these things so that we're dependent on a sick care system.
That's crazy. I believe it though. We got here a shark. A dolphin. That looks like a big old catfish. Hell no. What the fuck?
You are absolutely right about that cave. There are many beautiful mud fossils to be found there. From the Three Whales Rock
to,
of course, the cave of the petrified snake. But it's not just in the beautiful country of Thailand you'll find the evidence of these mud fossils. And it's far from just the titans or the giant trees. The rocks were quite literally alive. And if you don't think they lied to us about petrification and the act of fossilization, just take a look at a few of these examples. Petrification happens a lot quicker than you think. Makes you really rethink those dinosaur fossils they tell us are millions of years old, eh? Unless they had engines back then. Many of the NPCs will come into the comments and scream pareidolia.
Those are neat.
And that's fine.
What do y'all think? Y'all think those are old dinosaurs?
Imagining faces in the clouds, seeing cute little bunnies.
Oh, look at that.
For those of us with open eyes, you can truly see this beautiful world for what it really was. The evidence of how much larger our realm was can be found all around us. But the mind is useless if the eyes do not choose to see, or have been made intentionally blind. And that is what these parasites have done so well, blinded us to the truths hidden in plain sight all around us. Question everything, friends. Until next time.
In December of 2018,
people could have carved those.
The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office issued a number of seemingly out-of-this-world patents to the Navy for a hybrid aerospace undersea craft, capable of extreme speeds in both water, the air, and in outer space. A true transmedium military platform. Technologies such as, quote, a high-temperature superconductor, a high-frequency gravitational electromagnetic wave generator, a force field like electromagnetic field generator, a plasma compression fusion device. This aerospace vehicle utilizing the mentioned components would be able to achieve truly extraordinary feats of speed and maneuverability in all three mediums of air, water, and space. This sounds eerily similar to some of the established 5 observables of UFOs encountered by Navy pilots in recent years. The ongoing disclosure of the Navy admitting its personnel regularly encounter UFOs keeps getting stranger. The technology contained within takes advantage of a quantum mechanics concept known as the Pace effect, manipulating quantum fluctuations present in the vacuum of empty space. The inventor, Dr. Salvatore Pais, worked on this project while employed by the Naval Air Warfare Center. Dr. Pais breaks down his transmedium craft down to 4 major components: an inner and outer wall, microwave emitters, and a technology called an inertial mass reduction device. The craft works, he says, by creating high-frequency electromagnetic waves throughout the cavity between the inner and outer walls, causing it to vibrate. This wall cavity will be filled with a noble gas. Dr. Pais states that if done correctly, the craft will interact with the empty space surrounding it, allow it to then behave anomalously. Quantum mechanics for years predicted that empty space is not at all empty, but filled with microscopic fluctuations. That is the fabric of reality, is filled with subatomic particles that blink in and out of existence, known as the Casimir force. It's this that Dr. Pais suggests can propel his craft. According to the Navy patents, in order to break this quantum vacuum energy, it details another patented device, a high-energy electromagnetic field generator. The field generator is encased in a shell made from a ceramic metamaterial. An electric motor contained within forces this metaceramic to spin. When spinning fast enough, this unique metamaterial will generate a strong electromagnetic field. These energy fields can engineer the fabric of our reality at the most fundamental level. While this technology may seem from the realm of science fiction, quantum mechanics does show, in theory, and with the required material sciences, this craft will work. Dr. Pais believes this plasma-lined hull, surrounded by an electromagnetic field, can achieve a state called macroscopic quantum coherence. Simply put, macroscopic quantum coherence is something we can observe that retains and exhibits very strange quantum-like phenomena. This effect can be observed with helium. When cooled to near absolute zero, it begins to do things that sound impossible. Leak right through a solid glass beaker, evaporate upwards against the force of gravity, and when stirred, it forms a vortex that will continue to rotate indefinitely. Dr. Pais suggests the craft itself can reach this exotic state. It's here we begin to cross over into truly anomalous UFO-type characteristics of quantum weirdness. Since interacting with vacuum, the craft will essentially be pulling particles out of vacuum, creating a void, allowing for smooth sailing through the void. All the main concepts mentioned, vacuum energy, macro quantum behavior, have been proven repeatedly in experiments. Consider this: if helium superfluidity behavior looks strange to you, imagine how a technological craft with these properties may look to an observer. Dr. Pais says in the patent that such a craft as his may need to be of triangular shape or cone in order to work. Such technology concepts does raise the question, could the Tic Tac have in fact been a Navy weapons platform test? Or was it truly anomalous, perhaps non-human technology at work? You be the judge.
the structure that was found in 1994 called the Göbekli Tepe, and it totally has thrown off archaeology. They've been teaching that the Sumerians are the ones that had the first written languages, but they found the Göbekli Tepe, which is a 100,000 square foot temple that dates back to 11,600 years ago. Existed 6,000 years before the Sumerians, 7,000 years before Stonehenge and the pyramids. So this thing had been standing for over 1,000 years, and it has these giant 16-foot pillars in the middle of them, 10 tons each, and they have these carvings and stuff, very intricate layouts of the star constellations. It depicts the alignment of the stars and the sun. It was a prediction of when the flood was going to happen. So the flood that the whole world talks about, every culture has a flood story, that happened 5,000 years ago. This pillar is 11,000. Yeah.
Between 1896
Wow.
and 1920,
I hate when they cut them off like
a
that.
small number of powerful industrialists, together with their private foundations, spent more money on mass force schooling than the government did. Indeed, Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller together spent more money than the government did on schooling. If you want to know the motives of this project, you need only read the first public mission statement of Rockefeller's General Education Board that was printed in its first report to well-wishers, issued in 1906. People yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hands. The present education conventions of intellectual and character education fade from their minds, and unhampered by tradition, we work our own will. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or men of science. We have not to raise up from them authors, educators, poets, men of letters. We shall not search for artists, painters, musicians, lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, statesmen, of which we have an ample supply. The task is simple. We will organize children and teach them in a perfect way the things their fathers and mothers are doing in an imperfect way. The real purpose of modern schooling was announced by Edward Ross of the University of Wisconsin in the same year that was written. Ross is generally considered one of the three founders of the 20th century discipline called sociology. And in a book bluntly called Social Control, Ross wrote, I'll quote directly, "Plans are underway to replace family, church, and community with propaganda, education, and mass media. People," he informed his readers, "are only little plastic lumps of dough." Another insider of modern schooling, H.H. Goddard, chairman of the psychology department at Princeton, called government schooling in 1920, quote, "the perfect organization of the hive." Goddard wrote that standardized testing was to cause the lower classes to confront their biological inferiority, sort of like wearing a dunce cap.
Wow. Sound like programming.
The real truth, you better wake up and find out, has been around you all of your life. You just didn't see it. Example, Abraham Lincoln was elected to Congress in 1846. John Kennedy was elected to Congress 1946. Abe Lincoln was elected president in 1860. John Kennedy was elected president 1960. The names Lincoln and Kennedy both contain 7 letters. Both presidents were particularly concerned with civil rights. Both of the president's wives lost children while living in the White House. Both presidents were shot on a Friday in the head. President Lincoln's secretary was named Miss Kennedy. Kennedy's secretary was named Miss Lincoln. Both were assassinated by Southerners.
What the fuck?
Both were succeeded by Southerners. Andrew Johnson, who succeeded Lincoln, was born in 1808. Lyndon Johnson, who succeeded Kennedy, was born in 1908.
How
John
that?
Wilkes Booth, who assassinated
Yeah,
Lincoln,
this shit's
was born in
planned, bro.
1839.
Tell me there ain't no
Oswald, who
1% that runs this
assassinated
world.
Kennedy in 1939. Both assassins were known by 3 names: John Wilkes Booth, Lee Harvey Oswald. Both names are comprised of 15 letters. President Lincoln was shot in a theater named Ford. Kennedy was shot in a car named Lincoln, made by Ford. John Wilkes Booth ran to a theater and was caught in a warehouse. Oswald ran from a warehouse and was caught in a theater. Booth and Oswald were both assassinated before they could go to trial. And a week before Lincoln was shot, he was in Monroe, Maryland. A week before Kennedy was shot, he was with Marilyn Monroe.
Wow. Yeah, that shit's planned, man. The government's crazy.
What if they are hiding the Tartaria mud flood from us to cover up the fact that they intentionally erased them from history? The mud flood theory is a controversial hypothesis that claims that in the 18th or 19th century, a catastrophic event took place where a massive flood of mud covered entire cities and wiped out entire civilizations. The Tartarians were subject to this disaster and were wiped out completely. Now, the more sinister side to this story is that their entire existence was erased from history after this tragic event by the ruling elite. But why would they do that? Well, it is said that the Tartarians were known for their ability to create free energy from the atmosphere using their architecture. The ruling elite were not happy about this, as they had invested a lot of money into making energy into a business. And if everyone could access it for free, then they would be at a major loss. The main pieces of evidence we have
It's all about money.
theory are the buildings that we have in various parts of the world that seem to be older than the officially recognized timeline of human history, not to mention the strange windows and doorways that seem to have no practical purpose found on many of the suspected buildings.
Current version of history that we've been told is not only incomplete, it's just wrong. It's just flat out wrong. Whether they were big civilizations in Illinois 10,000 years ago, which there were, by the way. How can we not know that? We sent a man to the moon, and you can't replicate the technology to create. You don't have any good guesses how they were built? We don't. We don't even know when they were built. But why would anyone care? For suggesting that our historical timelines were wrong, and there had in fact been advanced civilizations in earlier moments in time, and that they had been eliminated somehow through climactic events, through natural disasters, and that we're not aware of them in any detail. Kind of seems to be true. Well, why don't we know that? And what does it tell us about ourselves and about the past that we don't know? That's what I would think people would ask. And I know that what I learned as a kid is wrong. What do we know about ancient civilizations? And the answer is like basically nothing.
Did you read about Tartaria?
Man, what do y'all think about that? Oh, shoot, there went my pipe. I think the government has a hand in everything. I think everything happens because the government wants it to. I think it happens exactly the way they want it to. But ain't nothing we can do about it while we are peasants. And we can stand up and revolt, but they ain't gonna do nothing to get us killed. But anyway, I appreciate everybody here, man. If y'all would, hit that like, hit that sub, man. Take my channel a long ways, man. Until next time, peace.